Congressman Ron Paul, a former presidential candidate who sought the Republican nomination. He fell a little short there, but he's not done yet. In fact, he may be starting up a revolution. He's got a new book coming out, The Revolution, a Manifesto, and he's with us this morning here on the WOR Morning Show. Congressman, good morning.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Congressman Paul, we spoke a little earlier with our listeners this morning about the fair tax that you have advocated, and also I have to tell you, a lot of them agree with you. They don't like the IRS, but they're a little nervous about the idea of a fair tax. How do you calm them down?
Well, I'm not the one that champions the fair tax. I always argue that fair tax is no tax or low tax. But I agree with the fair tax people on no IRS. But I don't want to replace it with anything because there are a lot of shortcomings with the sales tax, which is what the fair tax is. And our country lived a long time without an income tax up until 1913. And even today, if we didn't have an income tax, we'd have the same amount of revenues as if we had 10 years ago. And I think that was plenty. I'm for getting less money into the government, and I want more money in people's pocket because I think that's where our problem is. So I only agree with half of the fair tax proposal, and that is get rid of the IRS, but I don't want to replace it with a sales tax. It would be very unfair to the elderly and people on fixed income, so I see some shortcomings with it.
All right, now, speaking of taxes, we need those to pay down our debt, and that's another one of the issues that you have championed during your campaign. Tell us a little bit about where you see the U.S. economy now.
Well, I think it's in shambles, and it's going to get a lot worse. I don't think they're admitting how bad it really is. Every day you read stories about how the consumers are feeling, but if you listen to the government statistics, everything is still okay. You know, unemployment is low, and there's essentially no inflation. They tell us, you know, it goes on and on. But it is, I think the economy is in much worse shape. I think there's a lot more inflation than they will admit. Prices are going up much faster than 2 or 3%. And the consumers are bankrupt, and that's where our basic problem is. But it's been going on for a lot of decades, and I lay the blame at the doorstep of the Federal Reserve System, and yet today they're proposing that we give the Federal Reserve huge amounts of more power, and I see that is the problem, that we don't trust the marketplace, and we don't trust the people to decide how to spend money and save money, and that we're always depending on the government to regulate us and to decide how much money we should have and what the interest rates should be. It's central economic planning that has given us this trouble, and yet everything I see in Washington right now is they're demanding more central economic planning.
Well, if people don't do anything, if they just let the market happen from where we are right now, a huge number of people are going to lose their homes and lose their savings.
Oh, I know, it's horrible. But if you continue to do what we're doing now, nobody's going to have anything. If you continue to just bail people out by printing more money, there's no way you can take care of the millions and millions of people dependent on Social Security. They're already losing, their purchasing power by 10% because their cost of living is going up. So every time somebody needs something, we print more money. Actually, we make the problem that much worse, even though we'll feel better on the short run. It's like giving a drug addict a fix. Sure, you feel better, but eventually you kill a patient. So I predict the politicians and the people will respond exactly as you suggest. If you don't do it, somebody's going to lose their house. But, you know, if the market works this way, if housing prices were way too high because of the distortions that the Federal Reserve put in the system, the price should come down. And then some poor person out there, if it used to be $100,000 and it really should have been $20,000, goes down, it offers an opportunity to somebody to buy a house. But it is true, somebody does lose the house. But if you keep the price artificially at $100,000, there's never any correction, and the problem just lingers. This is exactly what they did in the Depression. They prolonged the agony by not allowing the bad investment and the bad debt to be liquidated. But politically, I think you've touched on it, it's not likely to happen, and that's why countries like us will eventually just destroy the money rather than face up to the fact that we should spend less money and print less money.
Speaking of debt, the federal government has just reported that Social Security and Medicare are up to about $60 trillion in unfunded liabilities here. Where do you see that headed in the next 10 years?
Oh, total chaos, and it can't be paid. Because, and this is one of the reasons I think I had such good reception on college campuses, because I talked a lot about this, and I offered the chance to young people just get flat out of the system and take care of themselves. Because if we continue at the rate we're going, the generation that's moving into the workforce right now would have to pay 80% of their income, in order to make all these payments. Or you would have to drastically cut the benefits. But the benefits aren't going to be cut. What happens, though, is the real benefits do get cut, and we're already doing that, and that is we destroy the value of the money, and the benefits are going down for the elderly, and they don't quite understand why. They get angry and upset.
You say they're going down because the dollar doesn't buy what it should.
That is right. The value of the dollar goes down, and that is a tax. If you just print money instead of either taxing or borrowing money, you've diluted the value of every dollar everybody has. So every bit of income, whether it's fixed income or earned income, the value goes down. The cost of living goes up, so then they blame profits, or they blame labor unions, or they blame the Arabs, or, they'll blame somebody else rather than saying, well, we've lived beyond our means. We've asked our government to police the world, take care of everybody. We're spending $1 trillion a year maintaining our world empire. And my approach to this has been the easiest place politically should be cut out the empire, come back home and save these hundreds of billions of dollars. Start writing this debt down and take care of the people in need. Right now we have hundreds of thousands of people coming back from Iraq who have brain injuries and psychological injuries that aren't being taken care of, and there's no way we can afford it unless we do something drastic.
Congressman, you have written a book called Revolution, a Manifesto. That, for a lot of people that's like, oh my gosh, this must be communism. Why'd you pick a title like that?
Well, because, when the campaign started, we never used the term, but some of the supporters started using that term, the Ron Paul Revolution. They took the L-O-V-E and highlighted it, because if you spell it backwards in revolution, it was a love revolution, because we love the Constitution, we love freedom, we love the independence that we once had. And it's a re-emphasis on our own revolution. It's not so much going back in a static way, but taking and picking up from where we were in the advancement in the cause and understanding of individual liberty and how valuable it is, and move it on.
In your manifesto, one of the things you say is that, every election cycle we're treated to candidates who promise us change, and 2008 is no different, but in the American political lexicon, change always means more of the same.
Yeah, that is it, and people, buy into it, so if you talk about change superficially, and if people aren't well informed, they say, yeah, that's what we need change. But the one thing is nobody's accused me of not having significant change, because I've had to take a few stands in Washington over these past 20, 30 years I've been in Congress and say the change means that you have to stand up to everybody who defies the principles of the Constitution. Change, in a way, is going back to the basics of the Constitution, but it doesn't mean I never liked the term going back to the gold standard, even though we did have a gold standard and we had stable prices. There's every reason in the world why we can think about how sound money can even be modernized in this day and age. It's just the fact that going back to paper money, which is inflation, governments have inflated for 6,000 years, and they've destroyed every currency except gold.
6,000 years.
Congressman, we need to take a break here. If you can hang on for just a second, because I want to get your views on the current political structure as we see it now with the candidates that are still running, and the possibility of perhaps a third-party candidate. All right.